Hi everyone, welcome to a really special episode of 33 Founders. We're here at the RunRev Live conference in San Diego with the founder and CEO of LiveCode, Kevin Miller. Thanks so much for joining us, Kevin.
Great to be here, thank you.
So I want to start out by congratulating you on an incredible year. Last time we spoke, you just finished your Kickstarter campaign, and you guys just finished another campaign for HTML5 just at the end of July. So it's been a pretty impressive and very busy year for you.
It certainly has.
Then you kicked off the keynote with LiveCode 8.0, which I think we should call LiveCode Awesome if I get my vote. Can you tell us what the best part of the last year has been?
What's the best part of the last year? I think seeing, getting to the end of the very monolithic refactoring project, which was that core goal, the £350,000 goal, getting to the point where we started to see the number of issues reported against that falling off, and to the point where we could see the end of the tunnel and get to the point where we had a release candidate for that. I think that's definitely been one of the best points. The HTML5 campaign was another huge high point. That was just so exciting, really great to be able to run that and see that and know that that's something that we're going to be able to bring everybody in the very near future.
So now, since we last spoke, how have you seen the mobile landscape really change?
I'd say it's become more crowded, definitely, a lot more crowded. The App Store a few years ago used to be a place where you would go to get exposure for your app, and it's a place where you now go to get your app buried. You very much have to do, you have to do the work, you have to do the marketing, and your app really has to stand out.
Is it a good sign, though, that it's become democratized?
I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's absolutely wonderful, and there's still plenty of space for good apps. I mean, the market is still expanding very rapidly, so there's a lot of scope there. The other thing that's really shifted in the last year or so is Android has really come on in leaps and bounds. As a platform, it lagged enormously iOS, certainly from a monetization perspective, a bit over a year ago, and it's not quite there yet, but it's catching up enormously, and certainly in terms of scale and volume, it's well and truly overtaken.
So Kevin, when we started out, you were telling me that you've been working 7 days a week.
It's been a crazy year, it really has.
So things have been incredibly busy for you guys, but also incredibly successful.
Yes.
As the leader of the company, what are you learning personally about how to develop and lead a company that can potentially change the world?
I've learned a lot in the last year. I've learned what it's like to try to run a company with a very finite amount of runway, a very large number of projects to deliver, some of them technically very complex. So, we've had to look very closely at all of our internal processes in terms of, do we really look after, how do we manage the milestones, how do we manage the uncertainty, how do we get these projects out the door, how do we make sure that everything is a success and stable. So there's been a lot of that to do. And it has meant that there's been a bit more of an internal focus. Kickstarter was a very external focus. We're out there, we're raising our profile, we're talking to people. But the actual delivery of that project has been a bit more of an internal focus. And I'm actually really looking forward to getting to the stage where I can start to look outward a little bit more again, because it's been quite a focused experience putting it all together.
You had mentioned, too, that you can barely see the iceberg as far as your marketing goes.
Can
you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, we had that huge burst of Kickstarter, which was almost, that's marketing in and of itself, a great way of getting the word out there. But after that, when you go into delivery and you're working on things that, as I said a little bit earlier in my keynote, you're working on all the stuff that's under the hood, and the users can't actually see all of that stuff, and they don't necessarily get to use it until the whole thing is finished and all of that layer of features is delivered on the top. I took the view that it was a project that we had to do, we had to keep going, and if we didn't push it through and finish it now, we never would. So it was just a question of sticking to our guns and getting it done.
Right, and so it's pretty apparent then that your community loves you guys. You were completely successful on Kickstarter. You made everything open source, and now you took your crowdfunding to your own platform to crowdfund your HTML5, as you mentioned. Can you share this with us a little bit more, and just what you guys are working on exactly?
Okay, so we did a crowdfunding campaign. It ended just a few weeks ago, in fact, to fund the HTML5 version of our platform. Currently, our platform lets you deploy apps across mobile, across desktop, and onto server, but they're all native apps, so it's not deploying into a web browser. And we think it's very important, if we're producing this tool that's about democratizing coding, about everybody can code, to be able to build browser-based apps. we know that a lot of people, when they're building their very first app, are expecting to learn a web-based language or a browser-based language. So it's a very important feeder community into the picture that we see. So it was a very exciting campaign to be able to run. We waited until we were far enough through the Kickstarter goals so that it made sense from a planning perspective. We didn't want to take on a project that would overwhelm us, but at the same time, we do need to plan ahead. It takes quite a long time to get these projects going. And we took the decision to run this crowdfunding campaign on our own site. We felt we had enough traction, enough of a community that we would do it ourselves, and so that's what we did this time.
And now HTML is constantly evolving. I mean, you had MDOT, then it went to responsive design, and now there's talk of a new picture element that's going to be added. So is this crowdfunding something you're going to have to constantly revisit to keep up with the evolving platform, or?
It is constantly evolving. I think that's very true. The great thing about it, though, is that it's evolving in the direction that we're going, in the sense that JavaScript compilers are getting faster, they're getting more capable, they're getting more feature rich. So it gets easier and easier as time goes by for us to put our technology into HTML5 as a platform. The idea is that we make design decisions so that we're taking into account where that technology is going, and it's very easy for us then to keep pace and not box ourselves into a corner. We've got this legacy code base, which is previous to the refactor project that we've just done, was causing some of these issues. So it is about moving forward with the platform and the technology as it moves forward.
You guys have actually recruited an entire new team for
Yes.
your HTML5 sect of LiveCode. What drove that decision, and what did you look for in those new hires?
The decision was driven because it's a huge chunk of additional work. We don't want to take away the focus from the other projects we've got on the go. It doesn't make any sense to get distracted in that sense. But it is something that our community wants and something that we saw of great strategic importance. In terms of hiring, we're looking for the brightest, enthusiastic, very knowledgeable, very technically able people that can work with the compilers, the virtual machines, and the entire chain process from beginning to end. So it's a process that we know from previous experience, particularly after the Kickstarter campaign. It takes a lot of time. You've got to go to a lot of effort to get the right hires. But we have the first person in place, and we've got another potential couple of candidates coming up. So that whole process is now kicking off very nicely. And Scotland's a great place to hire tech talent. There's a lot of really, really good tech talent over there.
I know you're also a part of Toastmasters leadership in Scotland, and that's something we didn't get to talk to you about last time. How do you go about developing leaders at LiveCode so every employer has that ownership mentality?
How do we go about developing leaders? First of all, we pick people who have a certain natural inclination and tendency. It's a question of finding out where your talents lie. Are you more on the tech side, more on the marketing side, more on the leadership side? So we work very hard to try to identify where all of those talents lie. And then we work to try to develop that initially by giving those team members that are interested in leadership a little bit more responsibility, and then a bit more, and just giving them a project and then seeing how they run with it and building them up in that way.
And I want to touch on this crowdfunding a little bit more. Aside from you just switching to your own platform, what did you learn about this? What did you do differently? Or what kind of happened that was unexpected?
What did we do differently? We made a decision to make the video a little bit shorter, a bit more snappy. We had that issue in Kickstarter that people weren't always finishing the video all the way through. We also decided to make the campaign simpler in terms of the delivery element. We tried this time to make all of the rewards electronic. So rather than having thousands of t-shirts to ship out and thousands of boxes and all of the rest of it that had to go around the world, we thought, do you know what, we're so focused, we've got so much to do at the moment. Is there a way to run this project without giving away those kinds of rewards? So we stuck to online training courses and licenses and things that could be fulfilled electronically to try and keep as much of the core focus on what we were doing. We ran it on our own site. We had more control over the whole campaign from beginning to end, the look of the page, the way that we structured it. And it was an interesting dynamic, definitely, to do it on our own site.
So since you had it on your own site, you could have had it go for like a whole year. Mm-hmm. But you've stressed the importance of 30 days.
Yes.
What's the secret behind that?
And the secret is that these campaigns, you go out and you think, well, I'm going to raise a huge amount of money, therefore I need longer to do it. But it doesn't work like that. What happens is that in the middle of the campaign, you have this kind of dead zone. You get all this enthusiasm and energy at the start. The first 7 days, it goes up like crazy. And then in the middle, there's this flat bit. You've not got that rush at the start. You've not got that deadline at the end. And then if you have that period in the middle that goes on too long, the crowd just loses interest. The crowd psychology starts to turn, and people start to say, well, you're not going to make this campaign because you're 100 days in and you've done 25% of the target, so there's no chance whatsoever. So you've got to survive that dead zone in the middle, and therefore it has to be a certain length. 30 days is enough time for people to come back from holiday or contribute to the campaign, but it's not so long that you have that effect. So I'm definitely sure that sticking to 30 days is right. I also think one thing I would do differently about that campaign is that we said it was going to be an all or nothing campaign, just like the Kickstarter campaign. But we gave ourselves a little bit of an out in that we said, we reserve the right to cancel the project if we don't reach the target. We didn't absolutely say. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to feel a little bit less pressure. Kickstarter, we made it 36 hours before, and then we went way over the target. But I actually think with hindsight that was a bit of a mistake, because I think a lot of our backers were looking at it and going, well, if we get them 80% of the way, are they really going to cancel this, or are they really going to not do it? I think it might have been better just to be decisive and go fully down that Kickstarter route. So that's another lesson learned with hindsight.
You just mentioned, although you're talking about crowdfunding, you were talking about interest and maintaining interest with people. And something that's come up a lot this summer in our founders' interviews is building apps that don't get deleted. Because,
right.
At Fueled in New York City, they call it DSD, download, smile, delete. I have done that so many times. And you guys have been named multiple times the best creator for apps. So I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. So I'm going to put this in two ways. The first way is, how are you guys building new features? You just mentioned 30 new features that people can do without using LiveCode. How do you do that with the user in mind? And then the second part of that is, how can people who use LiveCode build apps that are actually going to be moved to the homepage and used every day, rather than download it, they smile about it, and they delete it?
Okay, so how do you build apps that the user actually wants? It is about being very, very close to your target user base. It's about knowing your customers, listening to your customers, segmenting your customers, talking to them constantly. You want to make sure that when you're building something, you're building something that a real user is going to use, and you know who that real user is, and you've got a very good idea of why they're going to use it. So our philosophy, and one of the reasons that LiveCode is successful, is that you can build an app, a very lightweight app, very, very quickly. You've got functionality going, you've got a user interface that's starting to look like what the app's actually going to look like. And we suggest, and the really successful apps built on LiveCode all do this, get that initial early version into the hands of your target audience, whoever they are. And if it's a children's app, get a group of children of the right age. If it's a business app, get people in that industry sector, get them using that early prototype, and watch them, talk to them, and then keep refining. And the thing about LiveCode is it enables that flow, because you can make a change to an app. A customer can go, well, I quite like that, but let's change that feature. And you can have it there an hour later for them to try out, rather than having to go away for a week and have that whole feature built in a lower level language only to discover it's not the feature that you wanted. So LiveCode makes it very, very easy, but it is about you taking that and applying it in the right way. It is about you staying very, very close to the customers that you're actually building the app for. And in terms of having longevity for apps, it is about who are you going after, and is that app something that's genuinely useful on an ongoing basis. We tend to think of apps, in the App Store, consumer apps and games and these, download, throwaway apps. But there are so many other apps that we do use regularly. I use the Train app in the UK, for example, very regularly. There are business apps, there are sales apps, there are all of these various apps that actually have can become an inherent part of the user's journey, an inherent part of their workflow. And so if you're designing it around those users and you understand the value that app is producing, and it's not just an app that you've produced to go viral and get a little bit of a craze, but it's got some genuine depth and genuine usefulness, and that's how you're going to start to create a more sustainable business.
How do you personally, when you guys are adding features to LiveCode, evaluate what to add based on user feedback and what not to add?
What to remove.
What to remove, indeed. We all of the tech team talk very, very regularly to our customers, and we have regular get-togethers where we talk about the feature set and what's going in and what's not going in. But ultimately, for all of the committee nature and for all of the input that we have and for all of the consultation we do, the final decision, the final vision for what actually makes it in and what doesn't make it in, all goes through our technology director. Mm-hmm. So, he makes the final call and he's very well informed by the time he's in a position to make those decisions. But it means that we don't get this massive mismatch of different things coming in. At the same time, though, we have a completely open platform, and so we encourage users to add whatever it is that they want. We don't get in the way. We try to make that as easy as possible. And LiveCode 8 is all about making that as easy for any user to add anything to the platform. We don't need to be involved. If they want any of these features, then it's very, very easy for them to add them in, and once they create that feature and share it, the whole community is also able to access that feature. So partly, it's about us curating very carefully what goes in, but also it's about us providing the tools to enable our community to add whatever it is that they need, rather than seeing us as the provider of every last feature that goes into the platform.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you said your system for feedback is to actually have a get-together?
Yes.
That's crazy. So should startups abandon the virtual help desk and start having get-togethers with their users?
We do the virtual help desk stuff as well. We'll certainly analyze the information that comes in from customer service requests and from the bug database and all the rest of it. But I think you need a mix. I think you need a few of these different things. And one of the things that we get from an event like this, one of the core, most valuable things for us, is that we get a chance to spend 4 days talking to our users, and everybody on the team who's engineering those features gets a chance to talk. So we'll come back with a fresh idea. We can test out all the things that we're working on. I announced a lot of things that were happening in the next release. Well, in the next 4 days, I'm going to go from being highly confident to being almost certain that those are the right features and that we've refined that correctly.
And that's what I wanted to chat with you about for a second, Kevin, is LiveCode 8.0. Can you gave us a glimpse in the keynote, but can you give our viewers a glimpse of what's to come?
Okay, so we're really excited about LiveCode 8 because it's the first new version since Kickstarter where there's going to be a massive, visible, tangible feeling of a different new platform. All of this work that's going on under the hood that we had to do. I almost wish that we didn't have to do it, but we had to do it. We had to find a way. Well, LiveCode 8 is the first release where it's going to feel completely new and different. You're going to have access to all of the native UI elements on the mobile platforms. You're going to be able to integrate those out of the box without having to add in any extensions and plugins. You're going to be able to access any feature on the native OS. So if Apple announce some new features, I'm sure they will. I think they've got an announcement coming up. In fact, it's not going to be down to us to wrap all of those features. Anybody in the community can immediately create this little wrapper, and as soon as they've done that, everybody is going to be able to access that feature set. So it's a very big step forward for us. We're very, very excited about it.
A lot of the new iOS features you just mentioned can actually be used without even leaving LiveCode.
That's right, yeah. So the idea is that you don't have to have a separate compiler, you don't have to write any lower level code. You can do all of this work. You can write this little wrapper between LiveCode and the OS in LiveCode itself. And so there's a lot less to learn. You only have to do it once. You can try it out very quickly as you go, and you can see it work, and that's it, it's done. So it completely simplifies the process.
Well, I want to shift gears for a second and imagine that we've taken this interview and we're sitting in a classroom with 14 and 15-year-old high school students. Aside from the obvious reasons, why do you want to encourage them to code?
Well, I started coding when I was 12. It was a hobby. My parents got a computer back at home, and I was absolutely mesmerized. It didn't even come with a coding tool. I essentially hacked in and started coding, released the first package when I was 16, started selling it. And it's just great because you understand technology from not just the perspective of somebody using it, but you understand how it works. You understand that it's not magical, it's deterministic. You can predict what it's going to do. You can write a little app and it will do something. You're in control of this. And if you think about where the world's heading and where the future lies, it doesn't matter what industry you're going into, whether it's healthcare or whether it's manufacturing or whatever, it's all very, very technology-centric. So you want to be able to go out into the world where you understand this device that you have in your pocket, that you have on your desk, that you're going to be using every day. And you can not just use that device, but when a problem comes up and there isn't something for it, you can just go in there and you can just write a little app very quickly and hey presto, problem solved. And I see that as part of a sort of natural flow for your life. Programming can be the new Latin. It can be something that everybody can understand, and everybody can get the most out of these devices because they're only going to proliferate throughout the course of life. It doesn't matter what avenue you're going to take, you're going to want to be able to do that.
And it was HyperCard that inspired 12-year-old Kevin, correct?
It was indeed. It was very much, yes.
And I've heard that a lot of people are saying that you guys are kind of what HyperCard should have grown up to be. Is that what you're aiming for then?
That's absolutely it, yes. It's kind of taking the very best of that paradigm, the things that really, really worked and that made it the most popular programming language back in that day, and then mixing those in with all the modern paradigms. So a lot of the things that we're doing, mobile devices, extensibility, access to the OS, the object nature of things has all kind of moved forward. So all of those things are in the new paradigm that we're creating. So we're taking the very best of an idea and marrying it with modern ideas to produce something that we think is just how it should be.
So aside from other 12-year-olds, what about 40-year-olds? Is it too late for them?
Absolutely not. I think the oldest member of our community is 93.
Wow.
So it goes all the way up.
All right, you hear that, Grandma? Get you on there.
My nephew started when he was 9, so it's very, very broad.
Pretty large
range.
gap. And what's one thing, Kevin, that really essentially the solution of LiveCode is taking away that, oh my God, I don't know how to code feeling, because everyone can do it and it's so simple. But for somebody who still is a little bit apprehensive, what's one thing they can do that's simple to ignite them and really start helping them move forward?
You can download the platform. It's completely free. It's open source. You can go in there and drag out a few buttons and create a little app that just pops up on the screen and says hello world. It's very, very easy to do. There's a step-by-step guide up on our website. It'll take you a few minutes to do it. You can do another little app that maybe bounces a ball around the screen. It's another couple lines of code. It's very, very easy to get into. It's all open. It's all free to get started. And there's lots of lessons that on our website that just show you step-by-step how to break in and get going for the very first time.
Make a game in 3 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So before we close, can you tell us what your biggest dream is for LiveCode?
Biggest dream? I would like to see LiveCode as one of the world's top 10 languages. I'd like it to be up there, known about, completely flexible, used for a very, very wide variety of things. I mean, it is already, but I'd like to see it really take off. I think this is an absolutely amazing way to interact with technology and get the most out of technology. And that's our dream for it. We want to make it up there, the top 10.
Well, from the looks of all these filled seats, you're well on your way.
Oh, thank you.
Quite a movement.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we know you have to get back, but is there anything that you want for this conference in particular to stand for when you look back on LiveCode, what do you want San Diego to make you think of?
I think it's a milestone. It's a very, very big milestone for us. It's coming out of, as I said earlier, that very large, very inwardly focused project to starting to look out again and starting to actually ship some of the really exciting things that everybody backed us to do last year. So I think this is a very important turning point for us. That's where everything starts to actually take shape and come into being.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Great. Thank you
Thanks,
both.
Don. Thank you.